Welcome to Personal Finance. My name is Jim Parker, and I'll be the instructor for this course. It's kind of an unusual course. It's actually fairly useful, I think, in terms of not only providing you a mechanism to get a grade and get some credit, but also there's a lot of things that I'll cover that I think are pretty useful in terms of just life, especially now. We are, if you haven't noticed, things are a little rocky out there, and if you're not squared away personal finance wise, it's going to be rockier. So anyway, this is I don't mean to sound this pessimistic, but everybody thought that 2020 was just the absolute worst. I think 2021, at least finance wise, is going to be even more challenging. And for you all that are, you know, I realize there's a broad demographic of students who are taking the course, but for students that are in the traditional college age, um, you obviously have a lot of time left in your life to set things up and take advantage of some of the things we'll talk about and kind of set yourself up for success. Um, and one of the primary concepts, don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's the time value of money. Um, the fact that things like compound interest take time to develop, and so you've got time on your hands. And anyway, we'll talk about that. What I want to do now is for this first week is just kind of go through the syllabus, and then we'll jump right in and talk about the first chapter. A little about myself. I've been up here in Alaska, I don't know, 10, 15 years now. I was in the military, have a couple daughters, um, raise Hungarian Vizslas, um, quite a few horses. Now I'm primarily quarter horses. Um, Back, that was the original plane, the F4. I got in on the tail end of that, which was very cool. Great plane. Here's a couple of my horses, Avi and that's Duke. But anyway, I've got her. His mother is she's due again. Here's Avi, so this is a little dated, so he grew right up. Um, I've got an old Yak 52, but it's in pieces right now. I got to put it back together. Kind of unusual setup. I was living in Eagle River, and it just got too close for some of the things I wanted to do. Um, and I didn't have that much land, so I bought a pretty good sized chunk of land. It goes all the way back here, and anyway, it's just short of 100 acres, but had a whole bunch of issues out here that you may be familiar with. This is the Connect River Bridge. This is the Butte. Well, the Butte's right there. But anyway, people illegally camping on here. So what we kind of did was turn it around. I've got some campground host people who take care of that for me, and turn this part into a campground, and then I'm turning this part into a farm slash ranch kind of thing. But anyway, it keeps me busy. I still work full time doing other stuff in terms of farming. Hogs are pretty much this food bank. I've got a bunch of old birthday cakes. Sometimes we'll do that. Cows are not super productive up here. Just they eat too much. They're too slow to breed. Pigs. I've got 4 sows right now, and I'll be 40 pigs within a couple months. So um, much more productive. All my pigs go USDA. So if you've gone to Spinard Roadhouse or Seven Glaciers or some of the other restaurants, you've probably um, had some of those guys. Right here on the river, in fact, there's a pig waddling in there. I think this was Petunia or Daisy. One of the Vizslas, another same Diesel bow. Trying to raise some pheasants, just for hunting for the dogs and the rest of it. Um, in terms of experience, yeah, like I said, I was in the military. The military definitely they encourage you to get more education. Not necessarily up to a PhD, but you certainly need a master's. And then after the military, after I retired, I came to Alaska working for Booz Allen Hamilton, um, big defense contractor. I do strategic communications, so I get kind of bored doing one thing, so I try to do a couple different things. Um, Alaska Equestrian Supply. that's kind of an unusual business. I sold mainly horse stuff, and still do some, but it's the Alaskan market's fairly small for that, and I was not pushing, but paying for my daughter going through out of state college, and so I formed that business to kind of take care of that, and she's graduated, and I sold a lot of panels, and that's kind of done. Real estate, uh, I did that for just a short period of time, just on the side, and you can't really do that on the side. You have to jump back, jump in with both feet to get ahead in that business. And it's not really a business that I really, had a passion for, to say the least. So, um, but anyway, I know a little about real estate, and I can, perhaps answer some of those questions as they come up in the course. Um, Other things, just to, because in the military, people are, would question business expertise. Believe me, there's the military. I'd say it is kind of a business, and I was involved in a lot of foreign military sales. I spent the last half of my career in Europe, and a lot of that was doing operations where we're getting helicopters from Eastern Europe, and this was all above board from Lithuania and selling them to people down in nations who were participating in Afghanistan. So, and then the Connect River Ranch is what I've called the campground portion of it. Um, so, this was just to kind of give you an idea. This is the property. So the part you saw down here by the beach is what I call the beach. Is the part on the river. But in order to purchase this thing, you have to be creative financially to get ahead. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but if this property had sat vacant for quite a while because nobody could quite figure out how to purchase this, and I'll go through different details on that, but it is arguably one of the most complex transactions, and you just have to be smart about these things, like this flood hazard area that's since been removed, and so the property value went up. This was the old property line that they thought. All this other stuff was kind of bonus acreage. When I had it surveyed, the surveyor determined that no, it wasn't 78 acres, it was actually 93. So anyway, if you're smart about financial things, sometimes you can definitely work things out. And those are some financial examples that we're going to go through after we talk about the syllabus. So syllabus, it's available online right now, in Blackboard. See if I can make this a little bit bigger efficiently. Okay, so I think you're familiar with the course. It's spring 2021. Distance section, my email, my phone number, the text. I left the edition blank in here because, if you go to the bookstore, you don't need any of these extra materials. That's kind of not a scam, but it's just not something that we use in this course. And so, if you have an older edition, that's just fine. Sometimes the homework questions won't line up exactly, but we can work around that. So not a big deal. So get an edition of the book. They had problems with the e-textbook last time, but they kind of resolved it. They just issued the wrong ISBN. It's kind of the UPC code for a book. And once they got that resolved, people were able to access the book. Outcomes, I sort of talked about this, that, the way I see it is if you think, oh, I don't want to be a miser. I don't want to be obsessed with money. I'm just going to, not worry about that sort of thing. Guess what? You're going to end up in financial conditions where you're going to be forced to be obsessed with money because you're going to be struggling. And if you can kind of get ahead, if you can kind of get a nest egg set aside, then you can have that peace of mind and have that ability to switch jobs when you don't like your current gig because you're not job locked. You aren't locked into this employer where you've got to stay there, and And the best case, obviously, is and being a small businessman right now is exceedingly difficult. But if you can ever get to that point, working for yourself, um, you'll be able to pay yourself what you're worth, and also you won't have to um, endure a lot of. Well, you're gonna have a lot of stress. Don't get me wrong, but the tax code is more fortuitous too for people who are uh, small businessmen. Anyway, okay. So exams, there's a couple of them. So people always get this confused, but the final is proctored, okay, which means proctored through. We use the RP Now system, so it's not that onerous. You can do it with a laptop, but you contact UAA eLearning for that course. Midterm is just done via Blackboard. No drama on that. So there's a whole lot of stuff on here about requesting a proctor, and some of the stuff comes directly from eLearning, and you'll want to follow up with them. So people will call me up and they'll say, "Hey, I can't do this. I can't access the test." When it's the final, and it's like, I don't have the test. I turn that over to UAA eLearning, and that way they can uh, administer the test, and it just makes things fair for the final. Um, Term project, again, another thing that people either love or hate it. It's a facet of the course. I think it's pretty important because this is where you uh, look at your future. And believe me, sometimes I get older students that are almost retirement age, and they still need a bit of a plan. But this is very applicable to younger students who don't have any idea um, right now in terms of how they're going to set things up in their life. And I'm fully realized that a lot of times you may not know what you're even going to be doing, after you finish college. So this is sort of a forecasting thing where you pick a position in your life, and that could be right now if you're already immersed in a career, or it could be 5-10 years out, when you're through college and you're actually in your regular job and your career, and you're going to set things up. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through your plan, and you're going to use the elements of the course that we talk about in terms of what are you going to do about insurance, what are you going to do about investments, what's your plan for health care, are you under the impression that you don't need to do anything and you're just going to take Social Security and life's going to be good? It's not. If you're relying completely on Social Security, that's going to be a pretty meager existence at the end of your life, and not something you want to plan on. It's a safety net. It's not the primary plan. The career field, um, we're like I say, this gets back to what we're talking about. I think it's going to be very challenging because you've seen with the nation that a lot of manufacturing's been outsourced, and a lot of that middle class has kind of been shelled. Well, the combination of the COVID and also the ability to telework, I think you're going to see a lot of service jobs now being outsourced. People think, oh, this is great, I can work from home. Well, guess what? Somebody in Vietnam can also work from home and do your job, or maybe that's you. You have opportunities. I've got a friend who makes outrageous money working for Google, and living in Palo Alto, right there in the belly of the beast down in California, and getting paid a fantastic amount of money to survive down there. Well, because of COVID, he's back up here in Alaska living in his cabin, and he's still making that kind of money. That's probably from a Google leadership position. That's probably not sustainable. I doubt that they'll continue to pay that guy that kind of money. And if they can hire somebody to work from Alaska, they can probably hire somebody to work from a lower wage country and get whatever 70-80% of the results for 25% of the salary. So anyway, I would just be careful when you're looking at your future careers. Look for something that can't necessarily be outsourced, because whether you're a bank teller or whatever travel agent, a lot of those jobs have gone away, and more will. So And instructor expectations, obviously, keep up on the lectures, homework assignments. So the homework, again, this is a source of confusion. We get through this one pretty quick, but there's two elements in the homework. Um, One are the actual homework assignments, and the other one are these videos that are put out for comment. And the video will just be a short, couple minute YouTube kind of thing, and it will cover just the topic, and you just write a sentence or two. It's just 5 points. It's not a big deal. I've used YouTube in the past. I may continue, but I've got YouTube Premium, so I don't get the ads. I know some people are kind of annoyed with the ads and some of the things that YouTube uses. So there's competing video hosting sites out there. So it should be fairly transparent to you, but you may notice different links as we explore some of those. Grading, just step back to that for it. So midterm 30%, final 30%, the homework and the project, and then the lecture video comments. Pretty straightforward. Class schedule, so we're right there. Take the week of spring break off. Midterm exam will be just prior to that. Finals week. So the homework will not be handed in individually, other than the little video comments, but the written problems and calculations you do, those will be handed in as a batch assignment prior to each exam. So there'll be 2 sets of homework, and then weekly video comments, and not video comments on this type of video. It's not that I couldn't take the Spears, but no, it's the content that you'll be commenting on are just some of these sort of third-party videos that I've found out there in different places. We'll do a big review before each exam to sort of square away, and it'll be a separate video that you can review to sort of focus your study and make sure you're concentrating on the more important elements. All right, so that's the syllabus. So this is, you'll actually, don't worry, it's kind of hard to see in some aspects, but I'll actually have the files out there as well where you can download these and look at them. A friend of mine put this together. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. It's not rocket science by any stretch, but what it does is it shows the time value of money with different going in arguments. In this case, we're going to talk about individual retirement accounts. In this case, it's using a Roth individual retirement account, a Roth IRA. Some of you may be familiar with that, some of you may not, but IRAs are basically incentive to, I'm trying not to say basically anymore, are an incentive to get people to save. And so what you do is you get a portion of your salary, and you can designate that to go into an individual retirement account. In exchange for that, you get preferred tax treatment regarding that money. And there's 2 ways to do it. One is tax deferred, which is a traditional IRA, or just IRA. If somebody just says IRA, what they're talking about is a account where, let's say, you're making $100,000 and you designate $20,000 to go into your IRA. Well, IRAs and 401ks are very similar. A 401k is the same sort of tax deferred thing. I've already confused you a little bit, but anyway, you elect to put $20,000 into a tax deferred account. What that means is when you file your taxes at the end of the year to the IRS, you will be charged taxes on $80,000 because $20,000 was tax deferred. Okay, and so when you retire, there's a presumption that you're probably not working at that point, because you're retirement age, you're beyond age 59 and a half. And at that point, you go to withdraw that money, and you're presumably in a lower tax bracket, and that is when you pay the taxes on that, $20,000 in this case, plus hopefully that tremendous amount of interest you've gained on that. Now there's another program. You can't do 20,000 in a Roth IRA, but let's say you do 5,000 or something like that. So let's go with the same example. You're making 100,000 a year, and you designate 5,000 to go in your Roth IRA. When you go at the end of the year to file your taxes, you're taxed as if you're making 100,000. That the Roth IRA does not offer any immediate, tax savings. Your money you invest in the Roth has and will be taxed. So you're taxed on that amount of money. But the key thing with a Roth is that when you withdraw this money, when you're 59.5, you're not taxed on that money because you already paid taxes on the basis, but you're also not taxed on the money that you've made on that investment, that interest, which could be huge. So anyway, different strategies, and this is kind of relates back to the term paper. You need kind of a plan for how you're going to take advantage of this stuff, and you kind of need to have it early because the time value of money is all critical. So anyway, back to this chart. So it's a Roth IRA with 5%, earnings. And here's another one, same chart, but in this one, 8%, and then a final one of 10%. So that means that, one is a forecast that you're going to make 5% per year on that money. The other one's going to make 8%, and this one's 10%. And I'm going to use the 10% one because realistically, in the stock market, you can, historically, people have made 10% per year on average. So what happens is in this chart, and the whole basis of this chart is to show you the time value of money. And this one is really set up for a military type example where, somebody is maybe going to college on the side, but they're already, working at the 18-year point. And now it doesn't have to be that way. You can enter the chart at any sort of working age. But at this case, let's say this guy's age 18, and he or she is going to start putting money into this account, and they're going to be getting 10%. And so in this case, this chart is set up where that person is investing $500 per month, and they're going to take December, Christmas month off. So they're going to be putting in $5,500 per year, and they're going to continue doing that till the rest of the parameters down here at the bottom. If they do that, how much money do you think they'll have? So, $5,500 per year with the rest of the parameters involved, and then they retire, how much money they get. If I told you they're going to have $5.1 million, you'd realize, or $5.3 million, it's pretty amazing. So by doing that $5,500 per year, they've actually, total dollars they put in there is like $273,500, right? And with that 10% compounding means this is the beauty of compound interest. You're earning interest on interest. So this person, at age 65 has $5.3 million. So that may seem like a lot of money, but to tell you the truth, you're going to need a lot of money. But the other thing is that you can loan against this money throughout the course of your life. When I showed you that big chunk of property, for example, that I bought, 1/3 of that property is actually held as a 401k. It's an individual, retirement account. Theoretically, I can't derive any personal benefit. I mean, I derive a fair amount of benefit just by able to, walk across it and, enjoy the open land and have it be a buffer. But I couldn't necessarily build a structure on it until I retire or make improvements to it. But anyway, there's all sorts of things you can take out emergency loans against this if you're going through a rough patch. If you've got a nest egg like that that's building up through the course of your life, there's great things you can do with it. So anyway, I'll include those 3 Excel spreadsheets, and you'll be able to take a look at that. I wanted to hit that compound interest thing just at the get-go, just so you realize, the big picture and why things in terms of your financial life need to start early. Before you consider taking more student loans, take the student loans that are necessary to get you through school, but make sure that it's something that you can hopefully pay off in fairly quick order after you leave school, so that you don't delay starting to invest. So you can purchase a house and things like that. I realize a lot of this is we're going to be in some tough economic times, so we're talking a plan, and hopefully you can make that plan happen. But that's what you should probably be shooting for. So personal finance, yep. But there's not going to be questions like this on the test. We're not going to do definitions, but there probably will be something on opportunity costs, since that's a huge concept. Opportunity costs, if you're somebody who says, I have no money to invest, I'm just barely getting by, and but yeah, I go to whatever, Starbucks or Steam Dot or something, and I'm buying a $5 pseudo coffee milkshake thing every day. 5 times 30, whatever, $150 a month. Now, I'm not saying to forego your coffee every day, but I am saying that coffee represents an opportunity cost. That $150 that you're spending on coffee represents $150 that you're not able to invest with. And everything's like that. Time has opportunity costs. If you're, watching bad TV, that's not time. You're, out doing something that's probably a better use of your time. So anyway, life isn't meant to be, endured. Try to enjoy things, but do realize that, if you think you need a new car, you're definitely going to have, I'm do all right, and I drive a beater Jetta. It's a 2000. It's frankly a little embarrassing, to tell you the truth. It's got a few dents in it because I tend to hit it with tractors and other things out here. But not having huge car payments, and I do have a bunch of trucks and stuff like that. But anyway, new cars are probably one of the worst. That and divorce are probably the 2 biggest financial downfalls of most people. How you benefit from understanding personal finance. So we just talked about opportunity cost and financial advisors. It's really tough to find people, and there are some career opportunities for financial advisors who aren't trying to sell you something. You have to be very concerned when somebody's telling you, especially in the field of insurance, that this is what you need to do, and they're earning a commission. You're better off, finding somebody who's kind of a fee for service kind of person, somebody who's sort of like a lawyer. You pay them, try to find an ethical lawyer. Let's say one of those existed, and you're paying, say $250, $300 an hour, and you're getting their exclusive time, and they get paid whether or not you buy something. That's the kind of advice that's quite valuable. Anyway, components of financial plan: budget and tax planning, liquidity. Liquidity means access to cash. If you've got your money tied up in real estate, for example, and can't even pay the taxes, you've got a definite liquidity problem. Financing large purchases, such as a home, such as a vehicle. Now, you should be, some people say they want to be debt free, which is noble, but I tell you what, the debt right now, I have some different real estate things, and I do not mind at all. I'm refinancing things down to 2 3/4%. At that rate, when you can make huge amounts of money in different investments, and I'm not even talking Bitcoin. I'm talking just regular stock market where you can do quite well. Protecting your assets, so insurance, investing, and planning for retirement. So all these things are interrelated. They're not standalone items. Tax planning. So keeping what you've got, and the it's funny, especially now. You'll see in politicians when they'll talk about, we're going to tax the rich. We're going to do this. Guess what? The rich don't pay taxes for the most part. They can avoid them. They can move to localities. They can move their assets to places where they're not paying them. Taxes are paid by and large by the middle class, and that's where the huge amounts of people are, and that's where the huge amounts of, not, I would say wealth, but that's where the money is. And so if you're going to survive without paying an undue share of taxes, you need to be very smart about that, and you need to consider how to basically mirror things like a big political donor. If you set up your finances like one of those folks, they tend to find a lot of good deals for themselves where they end up not having to pay much in the way of taxes. So there's different ways to do it, and there's a lot of that comes down to maybe even setting up a small business to give yourself some options. Your financial position, though, we talk about assets and liabilities. So assets are things you own. So if it's a home that you just moved into and you've got a huge loan, the only asset part of that is that small portion that you have in equity that you actually own. The rest of that would be the liability. That's the part you owe. So, and net worth is you subtract those two numbers. Budgeting. Yep. As we all know. But again, if you start with just small chunks of saving, but you do it on a regular basis, and you use this concept of paying yourself first, where you just decide what you need to save, at a minimum, and you set that up like a bill each month. That's how you're going to get ahead, and that's how that money is going to really accrue over time. Talked about liquidity, so access to funds to cover short-term cash deficiencies, and money management is how to kind of get these things done, how to make sure you have enough liquid and enough other, because obviously having everything in cash is a horrible idea also. If you look at inflation, technically inflation's quite low right now, but the way that money's being printed, and if you look at certain assets, again, coming back to Bitcoin, it's going through the roof, and part of that is maybe reflecting that regular currencies, that the inflation is going to be a bit higher than it appears, especially as some of the low-cost countries that have been doing the manufacturing, as they begin to raise prices, since they will be able to, since they're the only manufacturers. It's when you go to Walmart to buy your $100 TV, it's now going to be $200. So inflation is definitely probably going to start inching up and scaling up quite quickly here in the near future. Credit management. So how much credit? So just like I said, house credit, mortgage credit, is typically quite low, because it's collateralized. That means that if you don't pay on the house, they come take it. So that's a good thing, because that means that the interest rates are quite low because they have some security. But then you get, and the other thing about mortgage debt is that it is tax deductible. Now, credit card debt is that's horrific. I mean, it's very, very high. Number one, because they can do that, they can make a lot of money, but also because they don't have collateral. It's essentially a signature loan. There's nothing standing behind the credit card that could come get your stuff, but it's very difficult and expensive for them to do that. So if you're carrying credit card debt, you need to get that squared away. And then also, it's not tax deductible. So managing your liquidity, money management and credit management. having access to credit and having access to credit cards. You do not want to, absolutely get rid of your credit cards, but you do want to be what they call a convenience user. You want to have them paid off to where you're enjoying all the perks, and you're getting the mileage, you're getting whatever, but you're not paying that interest rate, because regardless of the number of miles you get, if you're carrying a balance on it, you probably would have been better off just buying the damn ticket. So be careful with that. Credit cards can have a definite detrimental impact, but just the same, they can also provide an emergency source of funds, which will allow you to keep more of your money invested. So just keep the balances down. So loans, college tuition, car, house, and so anyway, they lump those, college tuition, car, house. The car shouldn't even be in that same category. It can be a necessity, and sometimes you can get a cheaper interest rates, but sometimes that's reflected in a higher purchase price. They're just monkeying with the numbers a bit. But anyway, and then competitive interest rate. And like I say, refinancing is especially right now, these rates, are quite low and probably will not stay there. Yep, lender, fund amount, fairly straightforward. Plan for protecting, so this gets down to insurance. Now, with automobile, at least on the liability side, it's a requirement. And then also, if you got a mortgage on your home, and just to be smart, it's not that expensive. Homeowners insurance is probably something you'll always keep. Health insurance, that's a whole different thing. The health insurance system in the U.S. is a complete mess, and there's two different ways to go on it. Either fully private insurance or fully government insurance, single payer stuff. But what they have right now is a system that nobody wants. Nobody, it was meant to be a temporary situation, and for some reason it's enduring. So hopefully that will be changed. But to lump that in with insurance is kind of a lot of those things are pre-existing conditions and other things that don't really fit the definition of insurance. So disability and life insurance to protect your income, protect the people that are left behind in case it is the life insurance policy. That is quite important. We'll deal with that in the course. Plan for investing. So, yep. Any funds beyond what you need to maintain your liquidity should be invested. If you got money in the bank, money in a mattress, not only is it at risk, but it's also the buying power of it's being eroded due to inflation. So, primary objective is a high return, obviously. But, I find most students are very risk averse, very, very cautious. But the truth is that a lot of you, especially when you're younger, you can handle being in the market and having some ups and downs and achieving a very, high return. But anyway, different investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. These are kind of the same thing. Mutual funds are usually a combination of stocks. They could have some mutual funds in them. And then, of course, real estate. So you'll probably end up with a combination of this stuff. Risk. And the risk is correlated, hopefully, to the return. So that's what you need to make sure. I don't mind enduring some risk if there's a potential for very high return. What you don't want is a lot of risk with very little chance of a substantial return. That's not good. And so risk at a tolerable level. So and some of this stuff, when we're talking investing, and we will be talking investing here, we're not talking speculation. Speculation is, sort of the Bitcoin thing, and other things where, hoping to make a tremendous amount of money, but it could also, potentially go to zero. That's in the speculation realm, and that may be a component of your overall, money management, but probably should not be a huge proportion of your retirement money, unless you've got a good backup. So, planning for retirement. how much money should you set aside. So in this case, I talked about that $5.3 million that the guy, at a certain point you can go through, and there's a number of online tools and things I'll show you that will help you estimate how much money you need for retirement. And a lot of that depends on your situation. Some people, although very few, have some sort of retirement associated with their job. Most people are, the employer has like a cafeteria style plan where you choose, the investments, and they give you a certain chunk of money or maybe some sort of match, and the retirement planning is left to you. And this estate planning, that's, death. So after, how things are going to end up after you've moved on. Net worth, wealth, it's all important stuff. And cash flows. So cash flows, back to liquidity. Again, it's a challenge. You want to try and keep as much money as you can invested, yet have cash available or access to cash to maintain your daily life. So budgeting, certainly a component of it. But again, you don't want to be the type of person that has to, well, maybe you are. Maybe you do, want to sit there and enter in the ledger each day the money that's spent. Hopefully, you'll be able to get to the point where you don't have to do that, and you can concentrate on other aspects. So the income, cash, your services. So again, this is what I would kind of consider early in life. I mean, there should be another chunk out here of your assets generating, additional income stream, and hopefully at a certain point that income stream from your investments is, generating more than your job, and that's when you say, okay, I'm done here, and you step aside and you live your life even more luxurious without a necessity. How do plans affect your cash flow? So these are just some budgeting aspects. So again, not all credit is the same. A credit card with an available balance is a great thing. A credit card that's maxed out is something you just need to eliminate. How financial planning can affect your cash flows. So leasing a car, we'll talk about that. Doesn't make sense for most people unless there's some sort of business thing involved. But even so, I've never ever leased a car. If you, we'll talk more about that. How much money, basically the minimum possible. You need to get from point A to point B, but if you're doing much more than that, there's definitely a lot of opportunity cost involved. Should you borrow money? Typically, yes. Whoops. Anyway, we'll look at some of these items, but these are just decisions that need to be made. Protecting your wealth, types of insurance. Again, you've got a lot of assets available out there, a lot of things to help you with the information available on the internet to compare prices and compare products to make sure that you're protected, but you're not wasting money on what are sometimes very bad investments. And then personal investing, risk tolerance, and then estate planning, retirement planning. Again, setting aside that retirement portion that you can draw upon is a huge strength. Yep. If you do get in a bind, yeah, working more hours is a short term type thing. But in this, day, it's probably more about just keeping a stable job, withdrawing cash from savings. Um, you know, in fact, to finance my business, a lot of times I'll borrow against my retirement savings. You you don't want to take money out of your retirement savings. You don't want to do a distribution withdrawal unless you're really in dire straits. That necessitates, well, the IRS will impose a 10% penalty. They'll throw all that money in with your income and tax you on it. It's just bad things will happen. But, in literally less than 3 minutes online, if you've got a 401k, you can take a loan against it, and it's amazing. The interest rate's going to be quite low, but even more importantly, because you're taking a loan against your own funds, you're paying, say, 5% interest. That interest is paid to you. It goes back in your account. And there's a few downsides, but very few. Very few. It's usually a great way to get cash when you need to do a loan, is borrow from yourself against your retirement plans. Cash and insurance policy. You probably have screwed up in life. If you've got an insurance policy with a cash value, I don't. We'll discuss it, but yeah, typically those type of policies are kind of an older relic that I don't think most people use. Sell some of your investments. That's probably not the best way to go. And withdraw funds. That's very bad. There's some consequences with that. Could have taken a loan against your retirement account and been far better off. Uses of cash. So, again, this first chapter is just kind of, all over the place, trying to provide an overview. And you'll notice they keep coming back to liquidity. You need to be able to, you'll see businesses out there that look like, they're doing great. They could make money if they could only, weather this, shutdown or something for another month or two. Yeah, they run into liquidity problems. They've got the assets. They've got maybe a great business model, but they can't meet payroll. They can't keep the utilities. They can't service their their lease, and they crumble. So cash flow in a business sense and in a personal sense can definitely take you out. Yep, everything's related to one another. In psychology, yeah, a lot of times this happens between, when you're married or in some sort of relationship and you've got one person who's a huge spender and one who's a big saver. It's going to cause problems. Or people who, spend money to feel better, retail therapy type things. When they get depressed, they run out and buy something. That's not a good thing. Assess your own spending. We'll look at rent versus buy on certain things. In this case, they're talking about roommates. Large monthly car payment. Do you need that? Credit card bills. Yeah. And a lot of this could be resolved by basically paying yourself first. Just set aside, say, 10% of your income and just establish that as a bill. And when your paycheck comes or direct deposit comes, that money is just automatically, transferred into your investment account. And then you're good. You're guilt-free for the rest of the month. And if you do have some extra money at the end of the month, you've got your basic investments covered, and maybe it's time to, I keep mentioning Bitcoin, but if you've been watching the numbers lately, I bought two of those things. I sold one, and I've got one left, but I paid $700 for it, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not one of those guys who bought back when they were buying pizzas with Bitcoins, but just the same, it's working out. And homework. So this is the homework. Now, again, don't stress out if you don't have your book just yet. when the book arrives or when you get your book purchased. These are going to be the problems. So homework's not turned in necessarily. It's turned in as a bulk assignment prior to the exam. So we're talking a month or so away. And again, download those sheets where you can see them and look at some of those numbers. And I could spend an hour telling you about how great compound interest is and trying to give you all kinds of examples, and it's just not going to sink in. If you look at those charts and you go through it, I mean, literally, I'm not trying to overstate things here, but it'll change your life. I mean, I think it was Einstein even who said, compound interest is one of the wonders of the world. I mean, people who figure this out and figure it out early in life can do amazing things. By the same token, and again, I feel bad. There's probably somebody out there with a huge credit card bill that feels like I'm picking on them. I don't know, but I would assume there's somebody out there. Compound interest can work against you. That screwy little bill that you're just making the monthly payment, the monthly minimums on, that compound interest, those huge numbers that are being generated are now being generated against you. So keep that in mind. Any other questions? The way we'll do this is I'll publish this stuff. It'll show up about once a week, probably typically on a Tuesday, and we'll just go from there. I'm sure I'm probably leaving a few things out. If I am, send me an email and I'll cover them in the next week. Thanks.